All right, so I got a question for you.
All right.
So we hanging out with a friend, and he says my Apple Watch is not helping me lose weight, and I'm tracking my exercise every day. And so we talked a little bit. He said, yeah, I plug in the right thing. I'm doing weightlifting. I plug in weightlifting. I'm doing a run. I plug in a run. I do all these things, and it's tracking. And according to my calorie counter versus my Apple Watch thing, I should be losing weight, and I'm still not.
It's complicated. There's a lot of steps to it.
Okay.
I think the tough thing to realize is your exercise calories, whether or not they're completely accurate, it's just not the whole scope of everything. You've got your metabolic burn, which all depends on how much muscle mass you have, how big your body, your height, your weight, your sex. When that person typed in their little calorie tracker, like, hey, I'm 6 foot, I weigh 180 pounds. That's going to be your metabolic rate calculator, your and if.
It's making a guess based on those things.
Then you've got whatever you're doing for exercise. You've got your NEAT score, and then you've got how much calories are burned through eating your foods and just like digestive systems.
Okay.
So I always think, I don't know, when you really look at it, the interesting thing or your biggest hiccups with exercise is always your NEAT score. Metabolic rate, you kind of don't have a whole lot of control over. The general rule of thumb is, hey, how much muscle can we have? We're probably going to burn more than if we didn't.
Right.
But
that one feels the most like genetic, like a hands-off kind of thing. Like this just is what it is.
Hey, if you do weight training over time, you're probably going to burn some more. P90X tried to make it super cool, like the afterburn effect.
I like the name of that, though. Afterburn made it feel like I was in top gun.
You throw a little marketing on it, it feels really good. But it all still is just, hey, if you're going to strength train, you're going to burn more calories throughout the day because your body has to recoup.
Right.
You're supporting more mass. But the reason why exercise, I always thought it was so kind of crazy that, first of all, you go from the 93 to or 27 to 93% Apple Watches or all fitness trackers are off. Imagine that.
Hold
if you
on.
go in,
no, say it again. All right, so how many?
Let's see the perfect stat. I looked these up the other day. It's pretty cool. Fitness trackers are off by 27 to 93%.
That's not even. So it's not even kind of accurate.
Yeah, so if you're in there tracking your food, you're doing everything you're supposed to do, you put in your exercise calories, and you're like, hey, man, I just did this crazy workout. I'm soaked. It says I burned 1,200 calories.
Easily.
I'm good to go. You may have only burned 400. So if you think about what the scope of that means in a nutshell, not too complicated. Remember how many calories in a pound of fat?
Oh, like 7, right?
3,500 calories is 1
Same
pound
thing.
of body fat. So if all the numbers were super lined up, that is an enormous problem if every day you're crushing these workouts.
Absolutely.
And you're over by 700 or 800.
No, that's the exact experience I had. I would turn on my Apple Watch. Same thing as my buddy.
Sure.
That's why we were talking about it.
Yeah.
I'd turn on my Apple Watch. I'd put in basically what I think I'm doing. So we'd do, a Murph, and I'd put in like a HIIT exercise because I feel like that's pretty accurate to what we were doing. According to the fitness tracker,
was there enough zeros at the end? Like it gave you the 9 million?
It said you burned 1 billion calories a day.
I bet.
So it did. It said I had burned 400 calories, and 400 calories is I was also, because I was doing the other part where I was tracking my calorie count and all of my intake, and I was being as accurate as I could on my as accurate as I could on my actual intake. And I think that side of things we're a little bit better on. We're better at estimating calories as far as an industry goes.
Are you talking about weighing your foods and whatnot and like trying to eat? Is that where we're on the side of eating?
Yep, we're talking about the eating side. So I would track those things as well. So I've got both sides. I've got my eating side, how many calories I've intake, and I've got my exercise side, how many calories have I spent. And when I would eat all the way into those spent calories, because that's what they say you're supposed to do. You're supposed no,
you're good. You
You're
got
good.
your app going. Hey, feel free, eat them.
Eat into those calories. That's the benefit of the workout. Look at what you've done. Reward. Well, I would do that, and the plateau, the dreaded plateau, happened rapidly. Like I would immediately plateau.
Right.
And so if truly I'm off by up to 80% on my estimation for what exercise I did, like that could completely explain something like that.
Well, and let me also remind you. So, I'm looking up all these stats for daily, posts and things for people.
Right.
I think they're super fun. They're super motivating. And I found this other study that said the FDA let out a public announcement that said nutrition labels are off by up to 20%. So just as much that exercise is off, if your nutrition label is off by 20%, I just find this to be so crazy because it's easy for everyone to say that caloric burn is not measurable. But
Right.
when everything is so variable,
Right.
it leads you to believe that, like, if my fitness tracker's maybe off by 200 to 500 calories every day that I work out really hard, and then my food might be off. You think about a 2,000
Sure.
calorie diet,
Mhm.
the average person, I think most people relate to, 2,000 calories,
Mhm.
20%. You might be eating 2,400 calories. You might be eating 1,900. You might be eating 2,300. But if you're not losing any weight at all, you might be choosing some sources that maybe are the 2,400 side. Your exercise is 200 over what it could be, 600 calorie surplus every single day. Some people may even be gaining weight.
So with that kind of, it's not guessing, estimation. With that kind of estimation, it makes me feel like I really have to undershoot, like shoot the low end every time.
Yeah.
To give me the kind of buffer I would need to see the continual loss, if that's what I'm looking for.
When I was working with a bunch of people, it was kind of funny because some would gain and some would lose. But it's always entertaining when you really track all your calories and you track your exercise, and then you go and you're like, oh man, I could still eat 400 or 500 calories.
You're doing great.
And you feel full, like you're fine, but you kind of sort of let there be another snack and things like that.
Not a snack. I'm
And-
having dessert.
Yeah,
Like,
then
I planned for this.
And then at 2 or 3 weeks, you're like, I think I actually gained some weight. And then you like to say it's muscle. Of course it's muscle.
Of course, it has to be.
And then it's just really funny, though, when you look at all the measuring variables that are actually possibly wrong. So execute. Like, let's solve this problem for
Okay.
someone.
All right. So it sounds like day to day point, info point for info point. It's not going to work. I can't do it
You
as
can.
a snapshot.
I feel like you can. Yeah, you're exactly right. I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
as a daily snapshot, I can't do it.
Exactly.
I need what's the alternative to snapshot?
Average.
Okay.
You gotta have your average. So you got to, in my opinion, the most successful version of it, and you've seen it too. It's you have to create an average. So if you know generally what you eat every day, are you getting fatter or are you getting skinnier?
Right.
If you're holding your weight, that's generally the amount of movement you're doing with what you're eating. Your body says that's it.
This matches.
Yeah. So when you do that, and unfortunately, most people, it's hard to get someone to say, hey, track all your food for a month before you ever even try to diet and or exercise more.
I know you want to lose weight. I
Yeah.
know that's the game we're getting ready to play, but I need you to get a whole lot of background info
Yeah,
first.
because if you have your averages, then you're hedging your bets against all the errors.
Yeah.
Because when
that's a good way to say it. Like you are protecting against the error of the machine. I
right,
like that.
if you find like over a month that your weight range, right, the scale. What was that other fun fact I had? There was a scale
like 5 to 6 pounds.
5 to
isn't it?
6 pounds a day, and I can attest to this because when I would diet really, really hard and try to get a low body fat percentage, by Friday, I am pushing low numbers.
Sure.
But I was notorious for having miserable weekends, drinking way too much
I
booze.
feel like you're saying miserable, but what you mean is
I
great
was partying
weekends.
like a rock star and enjoyed every minute of it. But when you do that, it was like I could come out on a Monday, but be so dehydrated from alcohol that my food intake really didn't settle into an inflated number until like Monday or Tuesday hydration came back. And I'm like, man,
I didn't lose anything
did I
last
just
week.
kill it all? And quite frankly, you kind of
Yes.
did. But if you can, you get your norm, you know your range on your weight, you're fluctuating based on your hydration levels. By Wednesday or Thursday, I feel like most people, when they're hitting it hard Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they're probably at their lowest point. The weekends, they might make some mistakes. I would recommend not to do that.
Oh.
But once you have your norm for your weights, now we know whether we're gaining or we're losing. Exercise-wise, as long as you're staying consistent, just like anything else, you want to burn more calories, you got to move more.
So you're saying first week, first month, get yourself a time where you can change no variables.
Yeah.
Do nothing different. Do the exact same thing you would do every week.
But track, like do your best
And
to try to
track it
track.
And so then by that point, I can get my average, get my trending line. Am I going up? Am I going down? Was this a pretty typical month for me? And now I can start making an educated direction for my change, right?
Well, you think about it. If you do it for 4 weeks, you want the numbers to be consistent. So
Yeah.
if you notice you're gaining weight, you're probably already going to start leveling out. You're not going to have those monster desserts and those things if you're trending on the higher side of the scale. It's natural. You're
Right.
going to try to level everything out. So by the end of 4 weeks, you kind of generally have your weight you're weighing, your movement is generally the same. Then any addition that you add to that,
Mm-hmm.
you stay consistent with it. And I know we talked like 2 weeks ago or something about steps. You kind of like changing a habit.
Mm-hmm.
I really like utilizing the technology and using
Right.
the steps, because the NEAT score, to be honest, I didn't really put a ton of stock in that when I was exercising a ton.
Which is funny because it's a 15%, like that's a measured 15%.
Exactly. But when you're exercising a ton, I was running deals from like 3 to 6:30 or 7 o'clock every night.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need to know how many steps I had. I have a zillion, if you were
Right.
wondering. I have a zillion. So it's just kind of funny when you look at it as you get a little bit older.
Or change your job.
And
You move from a more
sitting
active
around.
job
Yeah,
to a
you-
sitting job. Like,
Yeah.
so my wife did a thing. She been a nurse the whole time. She was a nurse in a hospital where she had to move around to all the rooms and visit all the patients and do all those things. Never wore a pedometer during all that, but did have like an app. She doesn't have an Apple Watch. She has another one, and it tracks her movement. She moved to a job where it was more like an office job. Like she was a wellness center nurse, and the amount of distance they travel is like next to zero. And she noticed on her tracker, like her tracking bombed. Like it just said she went nowhere.
Right.
And so she felt super overwhelmed when she come home. She'd be like, I've got so much less activity throughout a day. I don't even know how to make it up. It's like, that's where the average really played out. It's like you never realized what your average was before because it was just normal habits for your lifestyle. And now that your lifestyle habits changed, the tracking at least was able to put the finger on like, this is why you're seeing that drop in activity level. Because during the day, you've lost, 1,000 steps per hour. Like that's a huge number.
Well, that's why people with a lot more muscle mass have an easier time losing weight.
Mm-hmm.
Their body spends more energy all day long. So in that way, I mean, I almost feel as though moving forward, as you change careers and do different things, you kind of almost have to get your average for that movement so that you know that you're either going to make it a little more or you're not going to lose any when you're doing these averages. Because that metabolic rate that you're burning, not as much control, but that NEAT score, if you come out and you're just like not getting enough movement,
Right.
you can work out all you want for that hour. It's probably going to equate to, if you're a small woman, sorry, you better really work hard, because if you're 5 foot tall,
Right.
you're burning 200 calories after the first 2
Yeah,
months.
It doesn't take you any energy to go up a set of stairs because you're tiny.
Yeah.
Tiny
Yeah.
people don't take energy upstairs.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
There's one more aspect to that I think is a little bit maybe hidden, and it's the fact that like if all of these things, so we'll say 5 years ago, I did all of this, and then 3 years ago I did it again, and my average is basically the same, and I keep moving through, and I can keep the same weight. It seems like there are plenty of opportunities throughout my life where all of a sudden there's a big change. A lot of people talk about it, like, when I turned 35, I lost.
You'd
all
like
that
40,
sort
right? That's yours. You're
nearly.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Nearly.
Uh-huh.
But have you found, with all the people that you've trained, have you found that there really is a reduction in that, or is it people's habits and lifestyle has changed and they didn't track the fact that that's what was going on?
It may be both, only because it's odd to me that everyone I ever worked with that was at all different ages all said basically there's somewhere in there every decade where you just gain more fat.
Yeah.
You're like doing nothing else, and then you just start being fatter. And I think it kind of goes in tandem. Could you literally write it up on like what it did? You could be losing more muscle mass because you're getting older. But I think it happened to me. I mean, I feel like I'm in the middle of the decades, not the ends. Like when you go 30,
No, you're pretty close
40,
to the end.
No, but what I mean is like 35 for me, that's what I felt. I was like, man, I can't quite get as lean as I was easily. I have to try. And my friend Carl that I work with all the time, he's 65, 66 years old, and he said it happened to him at 40. At 50, he's like right on the deal, like right at the edge of a decade. It seems like his body is either more efficient, he's losing muscle, which burning less calories every day. He's either moving less, through habits, but yeah, I think it's a real thing.
But you don't think that like every decade he potentially got a more and more sedentary job, or every decade he got more and more, I'm I'm the guy in charge. I'm not the guy doing. And so since I'm not doing,
Well,
I'm not spending calories.
have you ever seen it or read any of those studies or listened to any of these YouTube guys? That BioLane guy is an excellent source for data.
I like him.
He was talking about your NEAT score, this ideal amount that you're moving changes drastically for people cutting for, say, a weightlifting show.
Mm-hmm.
So you may think as though your exercise is super consistent, but when you get so down in a deficit, slowly but surely your body just quits moving near as much because you're trying to conserve energy and you don't even realize it.
Of course not, yeah.
But when you think of it like that, it's like, when you're getting older, are you doing those types of things? Maybe. I don't know.
That's a good point. Yeah, perhaps all of the things come out of the NEAT score. Like, yeah, it's because as a 40-year-old, you don't get up and run around with a kid on the floor because your kids aren't on the floor anymore. As a 50-year-old, your kid isn't even doing soccer outside.
It is kind of funny when you hang out with a child, though, and you see how many times they sprint in a day.
Yeah, constant.
When's the last time
There's no walking. Yeah.
I watch him run. I'm like, man, there's not one moment in my body where I would have thought to turn the gait up a little bit.
Yeah, like your daughter's a great example. It's like, hey, Dad, I want to show you something. And there's not a, like, follow me. It's follow me.
Yeah, like when would you have run today if you didn't say, I should go for a run?
And of course, when you followed her, did you run or did you stroll behind her?
No.
See?
Yeah.
It's a habit. Your habit's broke.
But it is interesting because to me, that's the full picture. If you really wanted to, it is very measurable. And I think the calorie counting, though it could be frustrating, if you actually spend some time, track all your food, and do your best to find averages, it works every time.
So yeah, it sounds like the bow on the package is, if you're just tracking and you're snapshotting your day-to-day, you're probably not going to get the benefits you're hoping for.
Well, that's the thing. And when it doesn't work, those are the things that you should be looking at. Right. Are you is the serving size? Did you really look at that thing that you were tracking? And
was
really
I being as accurate as I should be?
So fail on the side of more food than you probably ate. That's a good safeguard.
Oh, you're saying say I ate more than I might have.
Yeah, if you think it was 4 ounces, it was probably 7.
Okay, yeah,
you know what I mean.
A good start.
So fail on the side of a little high on any bubble that you think you're on, because you're probably going to forget that condiment you should have put in there too.
True.
You'll forget that handful because I wasn't supposed to eat that, so I didn't, but I kind of did.
But it was just a little.
Yeah,
it wasn't even a full serving size.
But the step thing for me, when I was working with tons of people individually, that was one thing that you could control their NEAT score. It was. Whether it was 10,000, 8,000, 6,000, 9,000, whatever you're averaging, if you want to add a surplus, if you hit that every day, then all these rules seem to work a little bit better.
Yeah.
So you want those exercise calories? Okay, well, if you want to eat into them, how about 20% you eat into them?
Ooh, I like that too, because then you're not eating the whole deficit, because odds are your body or your habits are starting to roll back some of that deficit on purpose. Like, your body's trying to conserve energy now. So now if you don't eat 100% into those calories, you only eat 20% into the calories, you might not overshoot the fact that your NEAT is actually much lower today, because I don't really want to get up. I don't want to waste the energy.
But if you hit your step count and then you only eat in 20% in your exercise, you're probably maintaining the deficit that you're shooting for. And then week to week, if you keep getting results, then you know that's how you got to play the game.
No,
you can't forget about those two elements of it. Strength train to get your metabolic burn up as high as you can.
Sure.
Your NEAT comes from, it's 15% compared to 5% of exercise for most people. And most people are probably who is really going to be listening to this.
Sure.
So got a step count, got to do some form of movement
to
that
at least
you're tracking.
Be aware that what you're doing.
But that's why it doesn't work. It doesn't work because there's too many variables that you're not controlling.
Classic science.
Dun, dun, dun.
I like it. That's good. That's really good.
Yeah, I think we'll get into another one next time and maybe answer another question.
I like it.